All right. Thank you, Sanchita. Thanks again for everyone being here with us today. I really appreciate all the HR professionals that are joining us here. And we want to give a special shout out to Cynthia Thompson, who's the editor and publisher of HR Professionals Magazine, for partnering with us on this session. And to everyone joining from SHRM, welcome to the chat. Welcome to the webinar. We're excited that you chose to spend part of your day with us. And since we're on Zoom, feel free to settle in, adjust your view however you like. Make sure you can see the slides. And if you want to, use the chat to say hello. Let us know where you're joining from, which some of you have already done. And I'm coming to you from Tulsa, Oklahoma, where it's 65 and sunny. And throughout the session, you can drop your questions in the Q&A box. And when we get to the Q&A section of the program, we will answer some of those questions. And we'll make sure that all your questions are covered, whether we do it in the session or not. We may even be able to send you some things personally later. And as Sanchita had already mentioned, if she hadn't already mentioned it, this is an educational program. It's not just a product demo. So you'll receive SHRM and HRCI credits in a follow-up email for attending. And that'll go out within about two business days. We'll also send you we'll send you a copy of the slides and a link to the actual presentation that we're going through today. And also joining us today later on will be Satish Kumar, who is the strategy and growth leader of Trainery HCM. He's responsible for PerformSpark, which is Trainery's product that does a lot of what I'm going to talk about today. And he'll be showing us exactly how to apply some of the principles that I'm going to be talking about. So just to give you an overview of what the session's about, and I'll take my mug off the screen so you'll focus on the slides. Focus on the slides, please. Why reviews fail? Now, this disconnect that happens when, after performance reviews are done, we have lots of things that just kind of fall through the cracks when you're not focusing on it throughout the year. And I want to talk about some of the emerging trends in performance management, exploring new approaches that address some of these traditional shortcomings that you and I all know are endemic in performance management. And then talk about triggering action. How do modern systems that can automatically initiate learning and calibration and pay decisions, some of these tools that are coming out, help managers and employees get the most out of these systems and really get to the heart of the matter and deal with things in real time. And we'll see how that works with PerformSpark. It's one of many modern cutting edge systems that will allow you to do that. So let's go ahead and start with a little question here, a little poll. So the question is, what typically happens after a performance review is completed at your organization? Just kind of sit with that for a moment, think about that, and you have some choices that'll come up on the screen, the poll. And Sanchita, can I participate in the poll too as the panelist, or should I just let everybody else do it?
You need to be neutral, Robert.
Okay. Oh, all right. Because I have an opinion too on my end, but yeah, I want to see what everybody else thinks. So development or learning actions are consistently assigned. Some follow-up occurs, but it depends on the manager. Very little happens until the next review cycle. And, or we are actively trying to improve this. Some of you out there may be trying to address this proactively and specifically, or you're like, I'm not sure. So I'll give you a chance to uh, weigh in on that. As far as the echoing is concerned, if I need to switch to a headset to stop that echo, I will do so. It may be on my end. Let me see if I'm going to turn my speakers off. Okay, testing 1, 2, 3. Does anyone hear an echo? Is it still echoing? How about now? Is it
It's
okay?
okay for most people. I'm sure the user might have to join back. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. How about now? I turned my speakers back on. Does anyone hear an echo?
No, I think we're good.
I think we're good. It might just be one person. Okay.
So I'm going to end the poll. We have around 70% answers. So I'm going to share
Mhm.
the screen right now with the
Okay.
answers.
Hmm.
So there you have it.
Okay. Can everyone see the poll? Uh, okay. Development and learning actions are consistently assigned. Only 5%. Wow. Some follow-up occurs, but it depends on the manager. That's the majority. That's kind of what I expected to see. 2%, not sure. Wow. That's there's some awareness here, definitely. You're actively trying to improve that 17%. Very little happens until the next review cycle. That is actually kind of traditional. That's your traditional performance cycle where you get to that time of year where uh, you're just like, oh, it's time to do performance reviews. Let me wrap my head around this, and then you do the performance review activities, and then you wrap it up, and then you get back to normal business. And maybe you do a mid-year check-in if that's part of your process. But in between time, there's nothing presenting in front of you to act upon. It's like traditional uh, performance management is more like going to the dentist once or twice a year. You get some X-rays, you get your teeth cleaned. Something needs fixed, you get it fixed. But the modern approach, the today's approach to performance management is trending towards brushing your teeth. It's the difference between going to the dentist twice a year and doing a daily habit that that ensures that when you do go to the dentist, you get good results. You get a good report and you get some positive feedback. So it's the difference between going to the dentist twice a year and not really managing things and brushing your teeth. You got to do both. So now that we've completed that poll, are we back to sharing again? Can I go to the next slide, Sanchita? Okay. All right, here we go. We're talking about performance triggers as operational triggers. So instead of it being like this thing you do once a year, it's something that, you think of performance reviews as the end point. It's like, okay, we're at the end of the year. Let's look back 12 months and figure out what happened and make some sense of it and make decisions based off of it, whether it be for training, merit increases, promotions, personnel actions, performance improvement plans, and such. It's in the past. It's a chore that happens at a certain time of the year and it's forgotten most of the year. I mean, there are pitfalls to that, such as the recency effect. Recent performance and circumstances can color the perception on the whole year. So, what happened toward the end of the year might get in the way of you really looking at the year as a whole, the total contribution. Now, with continuous performance management, which is a more recent trend, that's changing because now you're getting a fair and complete assessment because you're doing it all along the way throughout the year. Continuous forward-looking reviews that trigger development actions, improve feedback quality, and connect performance to learning and pay. And this triangle here has to kind of talks about that. It's a growth triangle. You have performance reviews, they inform pay decisions. A lot of organizations use performance review metrics such as performance rating scores to determine where a person falls on the merit matrix. Compensation shapes performance expectations. How you get paid is a form of motivation. That's also learning and identifying progress and promotion opportunities and learning opportunities to grow and help your employees grow in their careers. So that's your growth triangle. So we're going from static reviews, the old way, to continuous growth. Traditional reviews are infrequent, backward looking, and lack follow through. It's mainly documentation creation, and it's a matter of just making sure that you stay on, you do that one thing a year. Now it's continuous and forward looking. You get guided feedback. Uh, the reviews trigger development actions, and you have opportunities along the way for learning and calibration opportunities. And it's a real-time activity, and that way HR has visibility into the process and has leverage throughout the year. So let's go on to the next one, and that's another poll. So, how consistent is follow through after reviews across managers today? In your organization, how consistent is the follow through? Taking a little deeper dive on diving in off of the first poll that we took. Is it very consistent? Somewhat consistent? Highly inconsistent? Almost entirely manager dependent, or you're just not sure?
Run the poll for a few more seconds. There you go.
All right. Just a moment here, please. Okay, so it looks like highly inconsistent is the predominant result, the answer. Almost entirely manager dependent. So it's kind of that's kind of what we typically see, and we want to be able to leverage some tools and some processes to alleviate that. So let's talk about that. So a system that has this continuous focus and tools to help you along the way are designed to drive performance forward. And that's through these following levers that you can use. Structured reviews. These would be role-based reviews tailored to the organizational needs and job levels. Now, with these advanced tools using artificial intelligence, we can accelerate the process of tailoring review elements to specific roles. You can have some large language models that can kind of read the job description and read the materials and the metrics that are available and come up with a specific tailored answer or a plan or a process and approach to deal with each individual situation. And you can be more precise in how performance is managed. You can base your plans on outcomes. They're tied to the review outcomes and the skill gaps. You can have targeted growth opportunities identified and then execute on those opportunities. Then you have integrated systems, seamless connection between surveys, learning workflows, and calibration discussions. And then you have real-time visibility, real-time insights, instant visibility into review participation. You can see what's happening as it's happening, completion and follow through. The old way of doing things, even with technology, was workflows. You didn't know what was going on until you received the email saying that so and so was completed their part of the performance review, or somebody actually decides to do something and make it happen. You can kind of keep an eye on things and initiate things without having to wait for that. Um, and then there's the accessibility or feature. It says here no feature gating. Well, a good a really well-rounded performance management program and process and tool is going to give you full access, open access to all the performance management tools without restrictions. So it's not a matter of configuring a module. It's everything is there, and you use it in the way that your organization sees fit. So with all those things in mind, let's talk about. Well, before we do that, there is another poll. So let's talk about that. What would most improve performance in your organization? Think about that. What would most improve performance? Okay, could it be clearer goals, better manager coaching, more frequent check-ins? Being able to scale those check-ins depending on the situation would be nice. Stronger accountability. That's the one of the main features of continuous performance management is accountability. And of course, the improvement of the feedback culture. Give you a moment to respond.
Few more seconds, I'm ending the poll. Oh, sharing results.
Well, there you have it. Stronger accountability. It wins the plurality, 40%. And then better uh, manager coaching, coaching managers, making managers be better managers. That's very important because that is a weak link in the system. If you have managers that don't know how to manage, things aren't getting managed. Leadership and management is very important. Clearer goals. I'm surprised that clearer goals is as low as it is, but then again, relative to everything else that we asked, I could see that because we're all pretty good about setting goals. It's about what you do after you set the goals. I've noticed over the years that whenever performance management is implemented, there's a big push at the beginning of the cycle to take a backward look and assess what happened. And then in the performance management discussion with the employees, the one-on-one management and employee discussions, they set goals for the coming year. And then maybe a week or two after they did that, are they still thinking about it? Not as much. Maybe at the, here and there, it's kind of haphazard. But when you have continuous performance management in play, those goals are set more top of mind. You can have very clear, very smart goals that are specific, measurable, attainable, realistic, and time bounded. But if you're not focused on them on a consistent basis, if managers don't know how to coach, if you're not holding people accountable, then you got an oopsie at the end of the year when you go back to do the performance review and say, hey, we forgot about that goal. And I like the idea that people are saying improving the feedback culture. Some organizations just don't have that, and encouraging that and making it easy to do makes all the difference. So let's go on to the next slide, which is performance in action. Let's talk about three different scenarios that we typically see in performance management. First is your solo superstar, your hypo, your high potential employee. This is somebody that is they need to be, you want to promote them into a leadership role, but they just need to close the gap on a few things before they're ready to do that. And there are tools that can be implemented for that. Assessing who is ready and who isn't ready for promotion uh, is the 9-box calibration grids, the 360 reviews where you're getting feedback not just from managers, but from peers, subordinates, and sometimes even customers, clients. Goal setting and analytics are key to that as well. Use these processes to help the team members prepare for leadership. Figuring out what good looks like. What are some specific behaviors that are missing? What impact is that gap creating? So that's what you do with your solo superstars. Use these tools to close the gaps and get them thinking about themselves in the future and where they want to be and aligning that to where you want them to be. You see somebody has potential, you want to foster that potential and get them ready and get them focused and aligned to it. You also have slipping reliability. That's where somebody is, uh, uh, they're good, they're a solid employee, but they need a check-in, not a PIP, not a performance improvement plan. They just need some help adjusting skills, knowledge, workload, time off, delegation. Here's where context comes into play and empathy. Sometimes there's an external issue, a personal issue. There might be some things going on out there in the world, natural disasters. We had the pandemic several years ago, or there may be some personal life issues. It's good to be able to check in with them, come up with a plan, set some SMART goals, and do some coaching. Maybe check in with them a little more often. And then the third scenario is where you have a severe gap, skills gap or performance gap. It says skills gap up there. It could also just be a severe lack of productivity, and you need to actually do a performance improvement plan and say we need to check in more often and get you on a fast track learning path to close the gap, lest we have to do some kind of personnel change, reassignment or maybe even termination in those cases. So those are the three big scenarios when it comes to performance that you would need to be able to address with an effective system. And then speaking of that, we have HR coaching reminders. Uh, this is where you would investigate performance issues before escalating. Check in and find out what's going on. Get the context and deal with it in real time and in the context of all that's going on. Don't escalate, investigate. Increase your clarity, increase support, increase the growth opportunity. These are the four levers that you can pull: training, coaching, exposure, and environment change. Maybe redesigning the roles, changing the workload, how the workload is handled. Maybe they do need some time off to rest and recharge and maybe deal with some personal matters. Being sensitive to that, having empathy and context to come into play. Skill refinement and closing. And also another thing, exposure. If someone is uh, not doing well, maybe they need to be doing something different. Maybe they need to have a stretch assignment. Well, these coaching reminders are a way to do that. And sometimes people just need a nudge. Coaching nudges. How can these coaching nudges help? If you have a way to do that, it's good to do that. These tools provide specific feedback. So you're avoiding vague comments. You focus on observable, measurable behaviors and their impact. And then you can increase the check-ins temporarily. You can offer more frequent support during those critical periods. Maybe we need to check in biweekly instead of monthly. And there's also a shift to growth conversations. Use a structured plan like a 30, 60, 90-day framework to re-engage employees. Sometimes that helps out. The communication helps out. And focus on resetting priorities, skill refreshes, stretch opportunities, and long-term path evaluation. The guiding principle is plans should feel like an investment and not harassment or monitoring or surveillance. And nowadays, when we talk about modern performance management, we're not just talking about, oh, we're going from this thing we do 2 or 3 times a year to continuous, where we're doing it on a monthly, weekly, or even daily basis, we're also leveraging tools that help us accelerate that process, that can help us better articulate what we're trying to do. AI can assist managers in giving them smart feedback prompts. I remember back when I was working back in the 90s, in the early 2000s, at one organization where I implemented a performance management system, and we gave the people a list of effective phrases to use, ways to say things to be effective in how you communicate sensitive issues. Well, with AI, you can put a lot of inputs in it, and if you've ever worked with any of the large language models, Grok or ChatGPT or Copilot or any of them, Bard, you're going to find that those if you put the more input you put in, the more data, the more context you put in there, the better results you get. And those results are something that you can look at and say, hey, how can I use this myself as a human being? Thank you, Mr. Roboto. Now it's my turn as a human being to make a judgment call and say exactly what I need to say to help this individual understand what we need to do and garner that cooperation and engagement. It allows for clarity and consistency, and having a real-time tone check. Make sure that the language is constructive and bias-free. Sometimes you can say something and then AI will say, well, we might want to say it differently because this may sound a little bit biased. It'll help you come through and make some decisions. Of course, with these tools, with great power, there's great responsibility. So use it at your discretion. It can also surface hidden patterns. An AI analysis may bring up something that maybe you didn't see, and that might be a helpful thing for you to have. And gives you some data, gives you some data-driven insights to guide better calibration and development discussions. When we talk about calibration, at the time when, let's say at the end of the cycle, you're using this information to make decisions about final performance review scores, and it's going to have an impact on people's pay or their promotability. And you're doing calibration as a management team. Well, AI is going to help out with that. It's going to accelerate the process and give you something, some food for thought. But the core principle here is not that AI takes over and does it for you. It enhances human judgment. Every decision stays human. And to wrap it all up here, as we get to get ready to do a demo of a particular tool that will help you with this, is to look at the continuous growth cycle. The continuous growth cycle uh, emphasizes the importance of connecting reviews to development, pay, and learning. Um, Feedbacks inform the performance. Development actions are created automatically. You can do some things with these systems that help you come up with those things with a little bit of assistance. And then you have calibration and compensation decisions are supported by the data that comes out of that process. And then also identifying skill gaps and creating learning opportunities. What training could be implemented based on the outcome of this process. And also conducting surveys. That's another thing that can be done. Find out, do pulse checks during the year. One of the companies I worked for in the past, they do an annual pulse survey. So a performance management tool could also be used to gather some of that information as well. The PM process overall is becoming continuous and highly flexible and enhanced by technology. So you must choose those tools and processes wisely. And what I'd like to do at this point is just give you the three key takeaways and then hand it over to Satish to show you how PerformSpark does a lot of these things. Number one, embrace new trends to connect performance, learning, and compensation workflows. Number two, transform static reviews into active triggers for employee development. And thirdly, leverage modern tools and strategies to make performance management a driver for business results. So with that in mind, I'd like to hand it over to Satish to show you PerformSpark doing these very things. Satish?
Thanks, Robert. Actually, before we jump in, because some of these questions are probably more applicable to what you've just talked about, so I can maybe start it off because one of the questions that came in the chat was about, and correct me if I'm wrong, but what I'm picking up in a little bit here is that sometimes it's hard to pay for performance as a small business, and sometimes there is retention issues or follow through issues because you guys are the organization's unable to commit to a merit increase or compensation increase, or even a cost of living adjustment. And I think this actually comes from some Gartner research that came out. And my response to that is this is why actually integrated talent management is very important right now with this AI age. And if you are not Google, profit margins are going to be squeezed, and there's a lot of change management that's going to be happening within your organization. And what some of this research that's come out, and we're very in the very early innings of what this disruption is going to be, and we all have to be on top of it, is actually showing that retention is about equal to a compensation increase if you actually invest in your talent, showing either it is specific timely praise, kudos or recognition. These are feature sets that we are actually building out and deploying in the next 2 weeks. For, rather whether it is informal or formal recognition or peer to peer, right? So, your manager, you just did a sprint for, deployment or for a project, or your salespeople did a good job on a deal, just some peer-to-peer feedback so that's noted. And this is where linking these components is very, very important. So when that VP of sales is going to their year-end review, they can actually provide and say that you did a great job early in this year on this deal, and that's been noted. And in our system as a form of record that you've done really good, and that recognition is noted. Another component that is shown out in research that is helping improve retention when maybe compensation is not available is actually investing and showing their career plan. And this is where succession planning it gets very important as part of talent management, right? So sometimes folks are okay. Obviously, a lot of people are very Jerry Maguire, show me the money about it. But what I hear in certain conversations is that if they understand that, okay, I can't get a 7% raise that I'm looking for, they can give me maybe 2%, but this organization and HR and my managers have given me a clear cut plan to how do I get to the next level, and what are the gaps that I have to become, if I am a senior software engineer and going to become a principal staff engineer, and I'm going to have folks that work under me or are subordinate to me, telling them what skills you need to have and really investing in that person. Because that's a key component that we found in research and in our own, on the consulting side, is really improving retention. And Robert, I'll throw this question to you: Is
Okay.
employees frequently have life events occurring impact work? How do work-life balance issues factor into the continuous growth model, performance growth model? If you want to take that one.
Yeah, this is something that I addressed when I was with a previous consulting firm a couple of years ago. Uh, I was approached to talk about what was going on post pandemic, and how what goes on in a person's personal life and what happens in the larger world affects their their work. And having that context and employing empathy in performance management is something that um, a um, a tool, a continuous performance program will allow you to do. So as things happen day to day, week to week, month to month, you can make adjustments during the year to goals and expectations as a result of what's happening. If there's a macroeconomic event or a natural disaster or some kind of emergency, or whether it be global or personal, you can make adjustments throughout the year to recalibrate your expectations, maybe change some goals. And having continuous performance management in play allows you to do that with discretion. You don't need to compel your employees to put personal struggles and personal details into these systems. That would be a legal uh, issue to do that. But to the extent that they were willing to disclose, hey, I'm dealing with a personal issue, or hey, this thing that's happened, this flood or this tornado happened, and we're dealing with that right now. Please bear with me. It's going to affect my performance, and let's just put that in the notes so that at the end of the year, that's taken into consideration. Context matters, and being able to have continuous performance management, actually implementing continuous performance management in an intelligent way is a great way to show that you are empathetic and compassionate to your people.
Great. Thanks,
All right.
Robert. Hopefully that's question is answered. I didn't see any follow-up, so I'm going to assume that's the case. But to reintroduce myself, I'm going camera off to not mess with any of the or get any buffering that's happened before with Zoom. But I'm Satish Kumar. I work on PerformSpark specifically, and one of the leaders of our thesis here on the growth triangle that inherently talent management, and as AI evolves to become a very intelligent decision system, it's going to become a talent intelligence system and industry. So all the players and HRISs and payroll companies and us as a talent management platform are going to evolve to have more expansive AI capabilities and workflow automation to really connect these modules. And before I kind of show you the performance management side, I want to spend 2 minutes on something that for us makes everything work, and a key differentiator for us as well, as how we are going to be able to connect these modules, which we are in the early throes or early innings of doing so. Because if we don't show this or this doesn't make sense, the rest won't make sense. Um, Most HR teams, right, are running 3 or 4 different systems and they don't talk to each other, right? So your employee records and your employee records stored in your HRIS or payroll provider, your org chart may be somewhere else. Your performance reviews are in another tool with survey data in, SurveyMonkey or Google Forms. And every time something changes, someone gets promoted or a team restructures, a manager leaves. HR is always scrambling to manually update, 4 systems. And one client or one prospect we talked to had, 13 different HR tools in their stack. And what I've consistently heard is this is hell and this is heartburn every year for HR. And one of our goals is to kind of really, kill and decrease the amount of data silos that exist and have one integrated platform that can be used, right? So we are more than just a point solution performance tool. As mentioned by Robert before, we do have a compensation platform with job description management, job architecture, grade evaluation, job evaluation, as well as comp planning and scenario modeling, as well as statement builder or total reward statements, which is branded as statement builder, as well as a pretty integrated and expansive learning solution. So a little bit more than just your typical LMS, we also are rolling out from one of our legacy aspects is our marketplace, where whether it is your basic, if you're in New York, at least like I am, you have your sexual harassment mandated training, you can buy those courses from our marketplace, upload those to your LMS and make sure you're compliant. Or as well, as other courses exist too, and there's going to be a plethora, for example, maybe AI development for construction, or AI uses in construction, for example, that are courses that are going to be pretty important to your learning plans. So you have a question here that I can maybe address. Do you have a hierarchy of performance ratings that can be adopted or enhanced by the client? Yeah, we'll get into that, and then maybe if I don't answer your question, we can go there. But right over here, as you can see, this is part of our core, right? So we're keen on having an org structure. And as part of this, you'll be able to see what are the units that make up the whole. And of course, you have parent and child units right over here. And this is the structure of your organization that allows you to, really see what's going on, very similar to your HRIS. So we like to brand ourselves as a mini HRIS. So a little bit more expansive and far more powerful than your typical point solution tools that you may have for either learning, performance, or compensation. And right over here is an example of some of the direct reports that we have. And this is a dummy demo account. So for further clarification, I am Michael Thompson. I am the CEO and super admin for HR, just for demo purposes. And you can see, who reports to who right over here. as well as looking at your log of notifications, as well as a pretty basic directory, similar to what you would have in your HRIS or payroll provider, just to be able to find emails and talk to anyone in your organization, which is pretty important for the larger ones where people may need to work cross-functionally. Right over here is the money module for you HR folks. This is where you'll be spending a lot of time if you are on our platform. But the goal here is as part of the core, right? And one of the understandings that we have to have here is what really is your hierarchy, right? Who heads what? What is, instead of it being manual or being mapped as part of implementation or onboarding for certain point solution tools, whether in learning, compensation, or performance, you do this one time. You set it up with us, of course. We do white glove onboarding, and you will be able to see your organization as a whole with your parent and leaf level units right over here. One of the interesting parts here is you're able to also attach your HRBP. This is important for larger organizations that have HR business partners that manage maybe different locations or different teams or different departments. And another very important component of any HR system, and I know all of you have significant number of questions about this and make sure you have to fully understand it, because if compensation data or performance data is inappropriately shown to the wrong person, you are liable and it is a problem. So one of the things we wanted to make very easy for folks is to be able to see what are your roles and your permissions. So to briefly look at this, and this is what I would say is one of the key components when you're evaluating any vendor, is to really understand RBAC, because as a role-based access control, for to not use jargon here, one of the important parts is very key right now, as everyone is talking about AI this, AI that. AI is going to make everyone is going to use ChatGPT for, to replace Workday, for example. I think it's frankly a little overblown, and I think that's the house view here. And I'm sure you would agree that there is far more than just ChatGPT for what your day-to-day life is like. But as AI development keeps expanding, one of the key components this year is making sure there's access control, because you don't want your chatbot or your admin agent to be able to pull, for example, if you are a first year, analyst in a department, to pull the VP's salary by accident. And that has come out, and some players have had issues with this. So wanted to briefly walk through some of the kind of handles that we have here as the administrator. So if you are your HR super admin, this is going to be a key component where you have total control over the system. You can go and go into anyone's platform profile and see what's going on. You have your default employee roles. You have your executive dashboards, which pretty much have a lot of the admin view, but many times they may not be able to delete or add or edit. And this is a control we've put default in place, because many times you'll see that HR doesn't want the CEO to be messing around at all, because they have a method to their madness and they want to control that process end to end. For the larger organizations, we have the global HRBP that has very similar super admin access. But they will not have access to the workforce component here, which is some of the org charting and reporting and being able to change that. And going back over here, you'll be able to see that this is all scoped to what your role is. I am Michael Thompson, a CEO and super admin. I am a manager as well, and also an executive, as well as giving me super admin access in this case. And then right over here, when we talk about follow through, another key component we have to think about is how are people going to be followed through, right? So right over here, you can see the entire notification summary. You'll be able to see what type of notifications are sent out and what those triggers are, what will promote what. We are also working on being able to see what templates, what processes will trigger what. It is slightly, heavy of an implementation for HR to know every type of trigger that is sent out at any given time, but that is something that can be tracked if you want to, which we don't think a lot of folks are going to be using, in these logs right here. Another component we have here is something I want to mention that can't be shown, is we are integratable with Slack and Teams. So we would like to be in your flow of work as much as possible. However, we do endorse that we want people to have everything vis-a-vis performance in this platform. All your check-ins, all your goals, your IDPs, your PIPs, even a Word doc of a write-up of a note on someone that you want to remember come year-end review time. That should be in this platform. And that's very important for us because that is the way that the platform becomes powerful. AI is only as good and software is only as good as, garbage in, garbage out. So the more detail you're able to provide to us, the more powerful the uh, the software will get. And this goes right over here in terms of I'm a super admin, so I will be able to go into any employee's profile and see what are the participation summaries, what are the goals they have outstanding, what are the review cycle history, what are the check-ins that are available, what are the top competencies, areas of improvement, and 360 feedback. And this is just for performance. It's not even in talk, we're not even scratching the surface of learning or compensation. This is very important as well because you will see that as part of our job details, you can have far more expansive stuff than your typical point solutions when it comes to your work role, your job grade, and your category, which is, and a lot of people outside of managers, you all HR experts know that this stuff is very important from a compliance perspective and actually hiring from your end to end of onboarding to offboarding an employee, knowing where your employee stands in the grade and the job family, and those compensation rigid components are very important. That can be used here, and that is a metric that can be tracked. You can look at analytics by job family, by department, by job level. But moving on to where the important stuff is the performance component, right? So when we talk about integrated and integrated solution, you'll see that there is everything you need in performance in one fell swoop right over here. If I'm the HR admin, I get to log in and see for my performance cycle, which an example, the default here is going to my engineering goals and performance cycle. I will be able to see at any given time a real-time view of what is pending and what are some demographic statistics and what is due. You'll also be able to tell if something is at risk where managers are falling through the cracks, and managers don't think about this often, but you need to make sure it's done, right? The CEO or exec will come to you and say, what's the status? And many times they don't, like it when they say, well, these managers aren't there, they will make sure that you get it done, right? So that being said, you will have real-time access right over here to be able to see what is at stake. Moving on to some of the other flows that we see here is go right over here. You will see like where the statuses are. So right over here, you can see what's in delivery. None are completed or in delivery at this time, but you'll see these are in approval stages and these are in calibration. So let's go right over here to Isabel Romano. When we talk about connected, we mean linking these components, right? So right over here, you get to see a linked review. In this case, Michael Thompson, who is me, I was anonymous in this case, but I can see it, provided 360 feedback as well as goals. So when I am the manager, Sophia Clark, I will be able to providing a review for Isabel Romano. I will be able to see what are the components that are linked to this review. So when you are an HR admin setting up this review, you want to make sure there's no recency bias and you want to have a consummate view at the year end or in your mid-year review cycle. And this is where it starts to look forward because when you are able to assess everything in the past, you know what this employee needs to move to, where they are at present, what they need to improve on, and then what happens after will be done in a one-on-one check-in. And right over here, and a little nice AI feature that we have here is when you are a manager and you've done, tens of check-ins or, dozens of check-ins throughout the year, you've done dozens of goal cycles, and these are all linked. Having one view where you get to see everything summarized, right? Once again, we are not automating this and telling you what the review of this person is. This is entirely dependent on the manager. We all know on the HR side that we don't want AI writing reviews or making decisions in performance or in compensation. So right over here, you will see that you have all of these items linked. And when you have all of these items linked, this is an example of some of the data surfacing that comes with AI that we've embedded, where we're very conscious of making sure that we are, not hallucinating or not saying things out of place. Again, AI can make inaccuracies. Please do not make performance or compensation decisions based on what an AI summary tells you, right? But this does surface a difference in ratings that there is a gap between what Isabella and our manager are saying. So this provides insights, and one of the things we'll be improving on as well is to tell HR that maybe they need to intercede here. There is a conversation to be had, or there is some qualitative conversation that needs to be had that AI or software that no one can provide. Talking about some other aspects that I would like to show you about what's important is where AI cannot or software will not be able to solve it. But as we got a comment on, is about calibration discussions. So right over here in a cycle, right after all the initial manager and employee reviews are done in a standard cycle. So think about your normal 180 feedback in a standard year-end review, you will be able to create sessions for calibration. Why is this important? Because two managers, one might be disengaged and give everyone a 5, one might be a little bit harsher on the end. No organization should be promoting based on one manager's viewpoint. HR needs to be the owner. And now that with AI tools and software that we are, moving very quickly on, you will be able to have a constant view over your departments, your organization. So if I'm an HRBP of a 1,500 employee enterprise, and I'm looking at the engineering team, and we need to make succession planning or change management decisions, I will be able to create a cohort right over here with Sophia Clark as an example of the manager, right? As a manager, I bring Sophia Clark and maybe other managers into this meeting. And of course, you'll have people fighting for who they want to get promoted or who needs to be on a PIP or where you stand in your 9 box. So right over here, you'll have a cohort and of your employees that are going to be calibrated. And then you have the participants in this case, which would be Sophia Clark, because I'm the only manager, or she's the only manager as a part of this. Going into some AI ability here is we, once again, do not automate. We want to just surface insights. Right over here, you can see this is all tied to academic and scholarly sources of what drives or what or rationales for certain changes. So right over here, you can see that there is maybe potentially a disparity between men and women in this group, right? And again, we don't want to, fire the alarms here of saying that there's a lot of issues going on, but it's important for HR to have this, right? Because getting ahead of it is a lot better than a lawsuit from the DOJ. And we all know this in HR that we are very compliance heavy. We don't want that to happen. So we allow HR and coming here to help come up with a strategy. Unlike these HR native companies that we're all afraid of because we don't want them to implement a new fiscal policy of equal opportunity or adopt a different policy. We need to have complete control and still need that to be human. We recommend actions. Whether you take it is up to you. Now, moving on to another form of an AI alert, is this more specific about the manager versus that employee. So right over here, you can see an overview of what's happening based on statistical and scholarly evidence and some recommendations that can come here. For example, if you can see that certain races or demographics are getting, materially different, you may want to provide bias training because you want to intercede before attrition happens, or worst case scenario, an EEOC, investigation into your company. So that is an example of why we really value calibration, because that is a very important workflow. We think that when any manager is multi-manager, so you have over two managers in a department or a group that you want to make sure there is a standardized practice for that. Obviously, for example, sales might be different than what your engineering team is, right? When you have more than two managers, we highly recommend using calibration as part of your workflow here. And I kind of ran out of time a little bit here, but I just wanted to jump over in goals. And as I showed here, I will show here, you can see that when you create a cycle, and this is where you can create your standard cycle, your anniversary cycles for 1 year check-ins or 2 years, your onboarding, and your normal check-in / one-on-one for more formalized HR mandated one-on-ones between managers and employees, as well as your 360. Moving on to the standard though, just to keep it pushing a little bit, you can see that right over here, you'll be able to link these reviews. As you saw earlier, being able to link these reviews is how you actually integrate these components. So you have a very consummate and forward-looking view based on historical evidence. But going here, you have the entire goals component, right? There is some goals only software that some folks play for. Most organizations don't need that level of, OKRs like a tech company might. But right over here, you get to create goals and have an alignment view, right? If the CEO or the exec team wants to increase revenue by, $50 million. What are the components that make that up? And you can really able to see if that translates to improvable business outcomes. HR many times is thought as a cost center. When you use platforms that, you're tracking a lot of these things and it's seamlessly able to be tracked, you can more value is shown to the executives or, organizations within your enterprise or your company to show there's true value creation being done through the HR tech stack and HR management of, different workflows within your organization. Right over here, just to briefly go over, you have your box dev templates for, what we have is your typical your typical 9-box talent grid where you will be able to assess employees, whether they are, high potential, high performance, or low potential and low performance. And, something to click on, as we're running out of time, I want to open it up for some questions is when we said no feature gating, the reason why we say no feature gating for performance is that we think that surveys, calibration, one-on-one meetings, check-ins, feedback, 360, kudos and recognition, all of those bells and whistles that some point solutions are charging an arm and a leg or an extra dollar PEPM a month or $3 PEPM a month. These are all critical components of how you develop an HR strategy. Most of you will take all of that if available, but you can't manage that with your budget. It is pretty, wild for someone to go to their exec and say that for $19 per employee per month, they can get all of this. In reality, this should all be provided because these are all core components of your talent management strategy and allow HR to really develop a strategy instead of becoming admin and always chasing. And another component where we don't feature gate is we have surveys and for pulse engagement, onboarding, and exit surveys all in here. The analytics component, will be leveraging AI as form of, theme analysis, thematic analysis, and looking at free text to develop what is the takeaway here from maybe some free text. This can be done very formally through your year-end engagement survey, or you can have department-wide pulse surveys that you want to use and which will tie into understanding attrition. If you are HR and you're noticing certain folks from an organization are leaving, what is causing that? And we're well into overtime here, so I want to just maybe see answering some questions if I missed anything. So if you have a hierarchy of performance ratings that can be adopted or enhanced by the client, we absolutely do. If I understand your correction correctly, we'd have your typical as part of it, your 5 stars that you can start with, or you can make it 4 for whatever the case your organization needs. But we're also working on, you basing it on a summary factor. We also have that, and we've hidden it in this case because we built it actually for a specific client. But you will be able to also just have summary questions that can override from the manager perspective certain elements and competencies that you would be using in this case, right? So if you have your typical, standard review template with your elements and your competencies, you will have the ability to, rate on this or have a summary factor that overrides it because you don't want to index on certain elements or competencies. We highly recommend that you use both, or you use the elements and competencies and use, a quantitative way to assess just from a compliance and data perspective to when sharing and really understanding your succession planning, your change management, career plans for your organization and your employees. We highly suggest it to be quantitative, but we also offer the ability to have summary factors that can override that. We are now with 1 minute left, so I'm just going to stop sharing screen. I hopefully explained a decent bit here, but we'll open up for any other questions I see. So what type of support is provided to import existing employee data and previous system data? Actually, I can show some examples here. Let me share my screen again and go to right over here. Right over here actually is part of your employees. You will be able to add people through using, you have your import history, of course, and then you can add employees right over here. And if you use bulk import, you'll be actually, with a dummy file with AI, it does map your organization for you. And as well as if you have historical data, we will be able to use a lot of our AI tools to help map and for your employee records. How do reports and analytics reflect the continuous growth model. Reports and analytics is just that. It is just your reporting and your analytics. It should be driving future action by assessing historical action. A little bit more on our analytics right over here is you have a dashboard to be able to see exactly where you are. If you want certain people in your organization to see certain dashboards, you will be able to share that to those folks via, the email right over here if you are in the same domain. You also will have the ability to have shared dashboards. In your reports, we have a lot of ability to just see it visually right over here. You can see the goals as well as engagement, and you have some custom reports. An example right over here is you get to have, an exportable CSV file of what happened in your last cycle. Graphically, of course, they're all throughout the organization. You'll be able to see all of these right over here and export that as well as build your own reports right over here by giving some factors that we're happy to show, via more personalized demo. Web's organizational goals can connect with individual goals. Yeah, so that's a great question. So right over here, you can see there's an alignment view, right? So when you are creating, an organizational wide goal of increasing $50 million of revenue, that is an organizational goal. That goes to different departments and means different things to everybody, right? So an example here is, you need to increase your lead generation. What does that mean right over here to at the employee level? That is something that the organization has to put together. And for another side on, if you are in the account management side, right, you need to improve retention, for example. So this has the ability to look at it as a cascading view as well. So if you have an organizational goal, what are the team goals? What are the individual goals? I'm looking forward. And then right over here, of course, you can track your goals if you had any, goals that you wanted to be able to see at a list view or a chart view. You can see how that's over here. And then another component that ties to that is your individual goals. Those are assigned to you. So Alicia Gomez, if she's part of that goal cycle, her manager will pull that linked review in and be able to see her progress or lack thereof in that review. So hopefully that answers that question. Ton of features built in. What support is provided to acclimate the organization to using your tool? We have, white glove service, so we will set up pretty much everything that you need, and we will be there to, teach you to fish as well. So anything that you need for creating your cycles or changing or delegating your reviews, we're happy to do that and provide you with the manuals and documentation that's going to be required. If a manager position is vacant, will it go to a senior manager for review and management or continue? Yes, we have a delegate feature where you can also add a secondary manager. Once a cycle is created, we do work on one edge case that we came across where the manager was just out for medical reasons and the cycle was already locked in place. You will in that case have to add a secondary manager, or it could be your senior manager in the org chart, or you can delegate that to somebody else, which is a key feature in our 360 feedback. So I think that's all the questions that I saw remaining. Hopefully I answered anything. Of course, if there are any other questions that folks have, feel free to email me at Satish, Satish @trainery.one. And I'm sure that you will have the, more contact details when the demo and the PowerPoint presentation are sent out.